Congratulations! Your Patreon dollars have put me in widescreen. Don't say I never did anything for you. I haven't really had time to look for a video appropriate enough to springboard my opinions off of, with finals and essays and all that, and generally I try not to actively look for things and just address them as they come up, and generally I try not to respond to videos that other people have already responded to, but that aversion is going out the window this weekend. So, what's the video everyone's been talking about?
Hey.
Hi. I was gonna tune into my regularly scheduled program called We Said. It was basically a show where anyone could come on and talk about stuff.
This is She Said, a space where women talk about stuff.
But since a few crybabies thought that not enough women were coming on the show because the number of women was not greater than or equal to the number of men who routinely came on the show, they decided, in the name of equality, to change the original program into two separate things, and now the program schedule is He Said, She Said. That's right, men and women, in order to be equal, we must be separate. It's not even a separate but equal thing, it's a separate in order to be equal thing. And I think that might be worse as a moral principle in my view. One of those statements is saying, yes, we know that they're separate, but at least there isn't anything better or worse about their facilities, while the other is proclaiming, no, in order to be equal, we must be separate. However, once that's achieved, the separate male space will be considered not inclusive enough to women, so in the end we have one male and female space and one strictly female space. Equality. I may have taken that too far already. Let's keep going.
And I'm your host, Cameron Esposito, a woman.
Oh wow, you're a woman? How many years of study did it take you to achieve those credentials? Thanks for making it clear to the audience that you're a woman. They may not have taken your little talk on feminism seriously if you were a man. Wait, I have that in reverse, I think. I thought our society took male voices the most seriously. It seems like male voices aren't even allowed on your little stage. Okay, what annoys me about this kind of thing is that Amy Poehler, yeah, I'm talking to you here, you don't really understand the ramifications of the things you do. You set up this channel, Amy Poehler's Smart Girls, and you have this show called She Said on it, and as far as I can see, it's a space where women talk about stuff. There are no men allowed there. There is a fundamental problem in your thinking. You probably think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that women don't get the opportunity to get their voices heard as much as men do. And I assume you're a feminist. Your original assumption is incorrect. Can you live with that? The assumption that men get their voices heard far easier than women can is a falsehood. You're generalizing entire genders on the basis of what you feel is happening. Well, it's not happening. Women have all the opportunity in the world to become journalists, to speak out in an engaging way, and I have plenty of female speakers and writers that I follow because I like what they have to say. Since your initial assumption is incorrect, or at least hasn't been proven to be true, and you've taken action on the basis of that assumption, you've created a situation in which things are unequal. And you may actually have to reverse your behavior in order to support equality. Has it ever occurred to you that your ideology may have handled a few things less than perfectly?
As a woman, I know I'm valuable.
Good. I know I'm valuable too. Just not valuable enough to speak on your show, because that's where women talk about stuff. I'll just go be valuable somewhere else. You see that? You see what I just did? That's what most feminists are unable to do. Even when their voices are valued, or at least recognized as existing, opposing voices, which are just as valuable, right, get you called horrid things like misogynist and sexist, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. And the simple act of voicing your opposing opinion means you are silencing theirs. So when you say, a place where women talk about stuff, you've already lost me. You've cut out half of the voices, simply due to their gender. How is this equality to you? I mean, you'll mention it later when you drill into all of us what feminism is.
Dare I say, just as valuable as a man.
When's your next male guest?
And feminism is the social movement that agrees with me.
There are lots of feminists out there who don't agree with that. What they do is just what Amy Poehler does. They have their belief about how the world functions, and then there's how the world actually functions. Now, they continue to take actions that would be logically coherent for the sake of equality if their view of the world was correct. Well, scratch that. Most of the actions they're taking are logically incoherent, even with their delusions about reality. But I'm going to give you an analogy and see if I phrased it okay. Forgive me if it sounds dehumanizing. But imagine you run an animal shelter, and it has been drilled into your head that animal shelters favor dogs. There's a widespread attitude that dogs are far more valuable than cats, and so, for the sake of equality, you start turning away stray dogs from your shelter. You refuse to take them in to make more room for cats, because the cats deserve some food to eat too, and since the community of animal shelters favors dogs, they'll most likely get picked up eventually. What if every animal shelter thought that? What are you doing to the dogs? Sometimes actions have negative consequences.
Here's my co-host, Rhea Butcher.
What do you think happens when you die, Rhea?
Oh, hey, Rhea. What's up?
Feminism.
Rhea, what's feminism?
Yes, please tell us what feminism is. It's going to be a very difficult thing to do since feminism is an ever-evolving thing, considering it's made up of human beings. It's an ideology and a movement, and movements can change in regards to their actions and beliefs over time. So the best thing to do when describing what feminism is to figure out what feminists are doing in recent times so we can get a grip on reality. Because that's what we're talking about, right? Reality? But please, set the record straight on what feminism is. Because if your description of feminism is what feminism actually is, then every single feminist should at least hold these particular views. We can get a baseline of what feminists believe. We may be able to distinguish feminists from non-feminists at long last. I've had a very difficult time clamping down on what feminism actually believes and what concrete goals its members are striving for, so perhaps you could lay it out for us.
Feminism is the belief in the political, social, and economic equality of the sexes.
Well, then you're not a feminist. Or you're a massive hypocrite, because you don't allow men on your show. That would technically fall under social equality, right? See, this is the problem with feminism. You've left a ton of what makes feminism out. It's like if I started a movement called vernaculism, say, and I defined vernaculism as the belief in the social, political, and economic equality of the races. And that's how I sold my movement. I went door to door, I gave out pamphlets and everything like that. Then, when I had everyone dedicated to the movement, I said, okay, now that we're all agreed that equality of the races is a good thing, we need to understand that Asian people are oppressing us and attaining equality involves stripping them of their privilege. And then one person raises their hand and says, hold on, I don't think this is true. There's no evidence for it. And then I say, oh, look, everybody, here we have someone who doesn't believe the races should be equal. What an evil person. It seriously is one of the most sinister attacks on the mind I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. Feminists have no problem diverting to the dictionary to excuse their inconsistent beliefs, yet can completely jettison the definition of sexism and racism in order to excuse their sexist and racist beliefs. I'm not going to allow you to newspeak my language to the point where sexism against men and racism against white people are made non-concepts. Because that's what's happening here. They're attempting to define feminism as permanently good and erase certain kinds of racism and sexism. It's not going to work.
Wait a minute, do you mean like feminists believe that men and women are equal?
Equal has turned into such a vague term now. Especially when feminists keep inventing new types of sexism that need to be stamped out. Even if that stamping out of that new type of sexism was what they were fighting against before. When you have a monopoly on the words equality and sexism, you can basically always claim that men and women aren't equal, and something must be done. The moment that your movement thinks it's needed permanently is the moment it becomes dangerous.
Yes!
Glad you agree.
That's accurate.
Sometimes I feel like feminism gets a bad rap because people think that feminism is about women being better than men.
And what do you think gives them that impression? The only response I ever hear is, well, those people who think that about feminism are wrong because dictionary. I never hear an actual explanation from anyone doing these dumb little talking point gumball machine shows. Sometimes things with bad raps deserve those bad raps. There are reasons why people think negative things about feminism, legitimate reasons. And it's usually not just because someone told them that feminism is about women being better than men. Maybe it's feminists who have told them that themselves. Whenever men try to ask feminists to take on one of their issues, it's always the same thing. Wow, look, men are trying to make the conversation all about them again. Then they're subjected to this barrage of nonsense. Don't worry, feminism is about equality. The level of insult to injury is fucking astounding.
But in reality, feminism is just about equality.
You managed to get that completely backwards. The actual state of affairs, in reality, feminists claim to be proponents of equality, but actually take actions that are harmful to male and female equality. Beliefs inform actions, but feminists have actually managed to divorce their proposed beliefs from their actual actions. It's like someone claiming to be against the consumption of alcohol, buying everyone around just to show them how bad it is.
Look at all these equal signs, equal signs, equal signs, equal signs. Men, women equal men, women equal men, women.
Men, women equal men, women equal men.
That's feminism.
Sorry, but in order to convince me something is true, you have to repeat it 15 times in a row. Sorry, I know, tough luck, right?
Maria, are you a feminist?
Yes, I am a feminist.
I'm a feminist too.
Then maybe you should actually hold to that belief and allow men on your show. Don't worry about it. I'm sure other shows will take him. Society favors him, after all.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow. If that's not the epitome of the participation trophy, I don't know what is.
Why are you a feminist?
I mean, feminism is important to me personally because I was raised by a single mother and I saw her work really hard at a job and take care of a whole family by herself.
So, you're a feminist because you were raised by a single mother. I mean, you didn't even answer the question. You weren't asked, why is feminism important to you? You were asked, why are you a feminist? It sounds like you actually scripted the ducking of a question. And what does that tell you about your beliefs? And no, the answer to that question does not start with, my beliefs are important to me because.
What did you get from that has to do with feminism?
That is actually a decent follow-up.
Well, I know that now there's like a huge wage gap, which is the percentage of money that men earn versus what women earn.
What did you get from being raised by a single mother that has to do with feminism? There's a wage gap now! My parents separated, and I was raised by a single mother for a decent amount of time. Not once did she complain about her earnings. Not once did I compare her paycheck to her male counterparts. Nor did she come home bitching that she isn't being paid equally. You didn't get this wage gap thing from being raised by a single mother. You got it from people repeating a lie. It's derived from people with no ability to interpret data. And now it's truth. Repeating a lie long enough, right? But that can't stop me from repeating the truth wherever I see this lie being spread. I still don't understand how you pulled a wage gap out of thin air. The logical leaps that feminists make sometimes just short circuits my brain. What did you get out of being raised from a single mother? Wage gap! It's like they just hit a random feminist buzzword generator and force it out of their mouths as quickly as possible. She could have easily said something else and it would make just as much sense. What did you get out of being raised by a single mother? Well, I know that we live in a rape culture and 1 in 5 women will be raped or sexually assaulted in college. No connection. Just looking for excuses to bust the taglines out again.
So, what does a woman earn to do the same job as a man?
Typically, women make about 71% of what men make. But if you factor in race, the gap is even bigger. White women on average make 78% of what a white man makes, and a Latina woman on average makes 54% of what a white man makes.
Okay, I have an idea. How about, instead of factoring in race, you factor in anything that actually has to do with working, and you'll notice that the gap shrinks every time you do. I mean, fuck. Yeah, that's usually the response you get.
Almost like things are stacked against women, and we need an overarching word that could help us to be treated equally.
Singular words do not help you get treated equally. Actions do. And those actions were already taken in regards to your alleged sexist wage gap. They were taken over 50 years ago. Are you aware that it's illegal to pay women less for the same work? That's a law. People can be punished for doing it. I think one of the scariest things about ideologies is the feeling that if the label goes, then so does the belief. Well, it doesn't. The belief exists before the label. I'm not a feminist, and I refuse to call myself a feminist because of how toxic the movement is and all of the bullshit they drag along behind them. But I do believe that men and women should be treated equally under the law unless there's a legitimate biological factor. Now, I actually heard an interesting argument from a feminist, and it goes like this. I'm surprised because it's one I hadn't heard before. They said, saying I believe in the equality of the sexes and I am not a feminist is like saying I believe that Jesus is the Son of God, but I'm not a Christian. And my rebuttal to this is that believing that Jesus is the Son of God originated with Christianity. Believing that men and women should be treated equally did not originate with feminism. In fact, it can be argued that feminists don't even believe that. If we are to take that logic all the way through, I should be able to make up any term I would like, just co-opt any idea I want, lace that decent idea with horseshit, and then say, if you believe X, then you are Y. And you're forced into all of that crap along with me. At the risk of Godwin's law, if you believe Germany should have a stronger economy, then you're a Nazi. You know, just kind of ignore all that other stuff that's going on.
Wait a minute. I think I'm describing feminism.
I mean, you could be describing egalitarianism too, or humanism, I think. But no, it is dreadfully important that you call yourself a feminist, because the label matters far more than what you actually believe. Duh.
But are there any other ways in which women are, like, not equal to men right now in our world?
Yeah, Cameron, did you know that only 20% of Congress is women?
Who elected them? Men don't just poof into office in the United States, you know? People actually have to elect them. People includes women. I know it's insane to actually have to think about women choosing a male candidate over a female one. Or, it's even more insane to actually think that women maybe just aren't choosing to run as often as men are. Ooh, man, that's devil talk right there.
So as women, we live in a society that is mostly created by men?
Who were selected by women to create that society?
Yes.
Have you ever voted? And if you have you ever voted for a man? I mean, I'm just curious. I know that these things happen.
So it's almost like, even if you don't realize that you're being affected by this, it affects everyone.
Nope. Yes, it's daytime now, sue me. I got interrupted. What I've tended to notice among those who call themselves feminists is the fact that they don't critically examine their claims when they're in their daily lives. It's like they live in two worlds, their brain's version of the world and the actual world. They believe in this discriminatory wage gap and rape culture, but don't seem to recognize the gravity of their statements. So let's say a female feminist does end up comparing her wages to her male counterpart, who has the same job, hours worked, and all that stuff, and she finds out that she's paid the exact same amount. Do you think she'll begin to question her beliefs about the sexist wage gap, or do you think she will say, oh, well, I must work for one of the good companies? They won't think that they're actually participating in the standard. They'll think that they're the anomaly, when the exact opposite is the case. Every time the anomaly becomes the standard, and the standard becomes the anomaly. Without that reversal, feminists would not be able to believe what they claim to believe and still live in this world.
Like, for instance, if you're a woman and you're a young woman, you don't have a job yet, maybe someday this will affect you the way that you're paid. Or like if you're a dude and you have a mom or a sister, or you just live in the world and would like women to be treated equally, it's almost like you should care about this.
Step 2, when solving any problem, is devising solutions. Step 3 is taking action to see those solutions through. Step 1, which you skipped over, is proving that the problem exists.
So we've been working at this for a long time, and we still have some work to do.
There will always be work to do. If you can take problems that have been solved already and claim that they still exist, there will literally always be work to do. If you can point to an individual case of something happening and claim that's what society finds acceptable, there will always be work to do. If you can complain about something as trivial as this...
Look at late night television. There are currently no female late night hosts.
Then there will always be work to do. What happens when there's one female late night host? The next work to do will be that there aren't an equal number of female late night hosts. The ride never stops until the number of women in any given area is equal to or greater than the men in that area.
I think we have things to say and space in this world.
Those late-night hosts usually have a team of writers giving them things to say. Uh-oh, those are probably men too. Anyway, the late-night show isn't usually about the host. It's about the guests. Yeah, they get up and do the little monologue written for them by somebody else, but then it goes into the interviews with guests, guest performers, and all that stuff. And women are allowed on their shows.
And that's what this show is for. But I think there could be more shows like this. Plus, this show's only like 5 minutes long. Very short.
Boo, late-night shows have male hosts, but invite women and men to appear as guests on their shows. Let's make a show with a woman as the host that only allows female guests in the name of equality.
Look at all these equal signs. Equal signs, equal signs, equal signs. Men, women, equal. Men, women, equal. Men, women. I'm a feminist because I'm a stand-up comic.
So if you weren't a stand-up comic, you wouldn't be a feminist? I mean, that's your reason, right?
I work in a male-dominated field. And although I feel so much support and love for my fellow comics, I also know that sometimes I'm put in positions that they're not put in.
Such as? So, you're in a profession that's made up of mostly men. You feel lots of love and support from those men, but you're put in positions that totally exist that they aren't put in. And you fail to specify what those are. Are you just saying this because being a woman allows you to complain about a positive situation and get away with it? Just a thought.
So I believe that I am equal to my peers, and I also know that most of my male peers believe they are equal to me.
Well, apparently you don't, since you just said that sometimes you're put in positions that they aren't put in. Does that sound equal to you? 2 sentences. You contradicted yourself in 2 sentences. So which is it? Are you equal? Or are you pilloried by these horrible position things, unlike the men in your field like you mentioned earlier?
Like, I know they respect me. And so it's just an institutional thing. It's something we need to talk about. We need to talk about how women are being treated.
Sure, we can talk about it. I just want to let you know that I'm going to come to the conclusion that no problem exists in that area until someone proves that an institutional problem exists in that area. Oh no, I don't see any inequality here, but people have told me it's not equal, so it has to be the institutions. We need to get people talking about this problem that we haven't proved exists yet. Quick, someone come up with a way women are oppressed since we ran out. Help! That's how I hear that. Whenever I hear we need to talk about this, when this hasn't been proven to exist yet, your initial assumptions are wrong.
When we walk down the street at night, we should feel safe.
You are statistically safer than a man walking down the street. It's not my fault that you still feel unsafe. Perhaps take a martial arts class if it really eats at you that much. Carry pepper spray. Well, that won't work because women shouldn't have to take responsibility for their own safety. We should just tell criminals to stop committing crimes. Brilliant. There's always an ad hoc response that erases the agency of women somewhere.
When we go into work in the morning, we should feel respected.
Is there an epidemic of people disrespecting women in the workplace? Or is there an epidemic of feminists feeling disrespected in the workplace?
We should be somebody's boss if we work hard enough and have the skills to be the boss. And those are the things I believe. And those things make me a feminist.
You don't have to believe in the equality of the sexes to believe that women should feel safe walking down the street, feel respected in the workplace, and should be the boss if they work hard enough and have the skills to be the boss. Another disconnect. Feminism is the belief in X, I believe Y, and that makes me a feminist. It's just empty rhetoric.
Not only are women equal to men, but men are also equal to women.
Two is equal to 2, but 2 is also equal to 2. What kind of a logical seesaw is this?
We absolutely believe that. And now, how about a final word? The great thing about feminism is that anyone can be a feminist.
Oh, is it? I thought the great thing about feminism was that it puts forth that the sexes should be treated equally. Uh-oh, caught you in a little slip. The best thing about feminism is that we can recruit any of you.
Any race, any age, any sex or gender. And that includes you.
No thanks. I'm gonna go get my coffee. And stop saying this shit to children.